So in this one, I'm just going to go over the things you must know, or slightly you should know, before you continue coding in Python. The first one is the input statement, and the input statement just allows the user to put in something into the program. So to create an input statement, you just put input and a string, or you can just leave it blank. So if I run this, you're going to see that you don't see that code exited stuff that always comes out, because the program is waiting for us to input the string. So I can just say hello, and if I press enter, nothing happens because we haven't actually set anything to happen. If you want some kind of free message before like the input statement, I can just be like enter your name, and whatever you put in here is going to be shown to the user before the input. So I'm just going to put mine like this: enter your name, colon, and the space, so that as you can see, we have enter your name, and it's actually waiting for us to enter our name. So we can say Davis, but nothing still happens because we haven't actually said anything to happen. So we can start this in a variable called name equals to. So now when the user enters the name, we can say name. So after this, we can just do print hello, comma, name. And if I run this, you can see enter your name, Davis, and you can see hello, Davis. And this is just a very simple way to collect inputs from users. So for example, what if I wanted to collect like an age? So I can just say enter your age, and though let's just say this is like a prediction kind of bot or program that is going to be able to tell you how old you'll be the next year. So I can just be like, you'll be age, I think this should be age next year, and I'll put a comma after that. Yeah, oh sorry, age, you have to rename this name to age. So enter your age, you'll be age next year, but you won't be the age you are next year. So I can say +1. But if I run this and I entered my normal age 65, you're going to see it's going to say can only concatenate string, not int. So the problem is that we are trying to add a string to 1. If I actually print out age here, like print out the type of age, you're going to see that it's a string. That's because the input by default collects a string from the user. So in order to change that to an integer, I can just say age equals to int age. So now we are changing the age to an integer and we're adding it by 1. So if I run this, you're going to see if I press 45, usually like it'll be 46 next year, which is really simple. So now what if like I want to write this message not in the print statement, like just before the print statement? For example, I would like to have something like message equals to this whole thing, right? I'm just going to remove that. So you cannot say it like this, because if you say it like this, it's going to print it as a tuple. MSG, let me just show you what I'm talking about. If I run this, you're going to see we have something like 54, we have brackets around it, and we have the commas. Everything just doesn't look right. Okay, so how do we join these 3 words together? So you'll be and age +1 and next year. How do we join 3 of them together? So what we're going to do is we're not going to be using commas, because these commas only work in the print statement. We're going to be using plus. So if you put plus here and put a plus here, the spaces doesn't really matter, but I just like spacing mine out quite nicely. So if we have age +1 next year, if we run this, it won't still work, but I'm just going to show you why. So if I have a number there, it's like only concatenate, can only concatenate string, not int. So this is actually an integer, and me adding pluses here is concatenation. So concatenation is basically carrying a string and joining it to another string using the plus. So we can't join a string to an integer. So in here, I have to change this to a string. So I'm just going to put them around brackets and just say str. So that should just change it to a string. And if I run this again, if I enter my age, you'll be like, you'll be 655 next year. But as you can see, we don't have a space here. So we just have to add that manually. So if I still run this, it's going to work out really nicely. So this is just one way to do it. So now there are many other ways to do it. I'm going to only go over 2, that's concatenation and formatting. So there are 2 ways to format. I'm going to start with the hard way, because why not? Everybody is meant to start with the hard way. So the first way to format is we have some kind of curly brackets inside here. So after we have that, we can just do the format. So yeah, that is what the format does. If we just have a normal string, let's just say like name equals to a string, we can do aim. Sorry, I got the spelling wrong. We can just say name the format, and this is just one of the functions there. if I get rid of that, yeah. So the format is basically going to just say that point in the squarely brackets, what are we going to put there? So I can just say age plus 1, yeah, plus 1. If I run this, you're going to see, if I just type in 4, it will be 5 next year, which means this the format got this particular place where I put these curly brackets and filled it in for me. So I cannot, it's not only one curly brackets I can have two. So I can just say and be another set of curly brackets upper year. So after this, I can put a comma and just say age plus 2. If I run this, you get to see if I enter my age 45, you'll be 46 and 47. That's just because this dot format got these curly brackets. So the other easier way I said that is easier to do, you're just going to get rid of all this, and in front of where you're making the string, just put an F there. So now, as you can see, this guy's turned orange, and that's just going to tell you, okay, you can put in whatever message you want to put here. So I can say age plus 1 and age plus 2, which is quite easier and quite less stressful than every other method I know. So if you run this, you get exactly the same output. You can just put in a number, and here we are. So that's basically all. So now the next thing I want to show you is the \n and \t and \b and \/ and \quarter. So I'm going to just go with our example string here. And what if we, let's say we want to break this line here. So you say, we want to say you'll be next year, you'll be that age next year. Then instead of saying and, we'll just put a capital AND, and we want to move this one to the next line, you get. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the \n. So I want you to set your keyboard for a key that looks like this, and which is just the backslash. The normal one is actually a / looks like this, but the backslash is different. So when you do \n, it's just going to say, okay, print this in the new line. So if I run this and I have like 54, you'll be 55, and it gives us a new line. What if I want to put this guy in quotation marks? I know you may say you can just put it like this, but if you notice, it already gives us an error because Python is going to automatically close this string and start another string here, which is not what we want. Okay, so to put a quotation mark in there, you're going to use \, and that quotation mark. So this is just going to tell Python, okay, ignore this quotation mark we're about to put here, and we can just put that like this. If I run it, can give it a number 6, you'll be 7 next year, and quotation marks, you'll be 8. Most of the time, what people do to get away with that is they're just going to use the opposite type of quotation marks that they used earlier, because Python is not going to think you're going to close it in this case. So one of the last things I want to show you about strings is how to create a multi-line string. So you saw that we had to put a \n here. So what if you don't want to put a \n? Like, why can't you just tab enter? So this is one of the ways PyCharm automatically does this for you. So we have an F string here, and we put a \. After we close that string, we press an enter, and we have another string, as you can see, and that upper here. If you run this, it's still going to join the two of them in one line, but that's not what we want. We want a situation whereby we don't want to add \n, but we want it to print in a new line. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the triple quotation marks. So as you can see, we have triple quotation marks here, and 1, 2, 3 here. I'm going to just get rid of this one because it's not necessary anymore. So now, as you can see, it allows us to create a multi-line string. So now, if I can remove this F in front of it actually, but I can still leave it there if I want. So if I run this, you're going to see it's going to print it in a new line for us. You'll be 6 and 7 up here, because multi-line string follows it exactly the way you keep it. So this may actually be a lot to wrap your head around about the first time, but later on, when you just start implementing it, when you start using it, to just become a part of you, which will make it easier. So hello there, and this part isn't even supposed to be a part of this tutorial, but I just want to share it with you guys. So we're going back to working with integers, okay? And for example, I have a variable called integer, and this is going to be equal to like 100 million, I guess. So if I print this out, you guessed it, it's going to print the 100 million just like that. Let me just try this. Yep, and you see it out there. So this is quite hard to read. If you just see it at first, you're going to think it's like I don't know, I don't even know if this is actually 100 million. So what you can do essentially is that in the middle you can put underscores. Okay, so yeah, I actually got it right. This is 100 million. So you can put these underscores and run it, and you still get the normal 100 million. But this is still quite not readable here from the user, but it's readable for the developer. So To make it readable for the user, I'm going to just put this in a string, and here I'm going to use the f string again, and here I'm going to put in some curly brackets. So after the curly brackets, I'm going to put a colon and a comma. So essentially what this is telling Python is that after every after every 3 digits, or basically just format it the way we have done it here. So as you can see, we have formatted it to be 100 million clearly. Also, even if you don't put these underscores in here, so even if you remove them, you can run this now and you get to still see 100 million quite nicely. If you want to change the separator, you can just put like an underscore, and if you run this, you should see it's separated by underscores. If you try to use a dot, it won't work for some reason. So if you have reached this part of the video, I want to tell you a special thank you, and please hit the like button. So in this one, we're going to be going back to assigning variables. Okay, so now up here you can see you have a, b, c, and they are all equal to 5, right? Just doing a equals to b equals to c equals to 5, right? And here we can print out ABC, right? And down here we have another type of format. Instead of using the equal to, we can use the commas, but this is quite different. So you may be saying, like, what is the difference? So first of all, let's just run this and see what it gives us. As you can see, we have up here, first of all, we have the error, and second of all, we have what was printed up here. For some reason, I don't know why the error is coming before the actual code, but okay. So we have our 555 printed, and you can see cannot unpack non-iteratable. So what exactly is unpacking? Okay, so now if we have a tuple is basically an immutable list, as I've said before. So we have 1, 2, 3. Yes, now we can unpack this tuple and give each of the indexes a value. So I can give this a, I can give this b, and I can give this c. So that is essentially what is unpacking a tuple. So when they say unpack, just try to think about it this way, that you're giving each element or each item inside this tuple, or inside this dictionary, inside this array, whatever, you're giving it to a particular variable. So now as you can see here, we have efg equals to 1. So instead of 1, we can have 1, 2, 3, right? And essentially what this is doing is, first of all, this is a tuple. It may be hard to look at and notice, but if you just put this in brackets, it becomes very obvious. And now if I run this, you're going to see we're going to get everything looking nicely, because we have 1, 2, 3, and they are all in this tuple. So I can actually remove these brackets and it's still a tuple. Okay, so I think that is what people don't really understand about this unpacking thing. If you have like one value here, like e equals to 1, 2, 3, I'm just going to remove this. It's going to print out a tuple if we try to print e. So look at it here. It's going to print out a whole tuple because we are not unpacking this thing into anywhere. If you put e comma c, okay, you can come here and do comma c. If you try to run this, you're going to see that it's going to also give us an error again. Say too many values to unpack. You can't unpack it this way. So hopefully you get the point. And also, one last thing I want to share about tuples. I know this is not a tuples tutorial or a tuple section, but it's just essential. So if you want to have a tuple with one element inside, as you can see here, as we have e, we can come over here and run this. You can see we have 1 in that tuple. If you don't add this comma here, it's going to just get it as an integer. Okay, that's 1. So with all that said, I hope you understand this section. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one.